1969 C10. There's a problem with the fuel system right now. It's running out. It's running out because thermodynamics and a big block 540 are having an argument, and the thermodynamics is winning. I'll explain why in a little bit. But to sum it up, we're going to fix the fuel system, because once you've had the 540 and it's full glory and full of fuel and it's full trim, you really don't want it to run out of gas. It's a very happy motor. And if it runs out of gas while it's on its upward swing, it's not good for the motor. It's really bad for it, actually. It goes lean. Nah, don't like that. It's how you blow holes in aluminum cylinder heads. It's how you blow up a big block 540. So we're gonna fix that in this episode. And I think I'll show you the different types of fuel systems, the one that's on it, what we're going to, strengths and weaknesses, and hopefully you'll learn something, and it might help you guys out later in the future. And hopefully it'll keep the party rocking and rolling in this thing, because I like these 2-lane roads and I don't like running out of fuel when I need to accelerate. Just listen to this. Yeah, I can do this all day. Actually, in fact, I have. It's what I like doing. To the garage. Looks like we're gonna get a summer shower. Prepare. Now this will show you the weaknesses and strengths of your chassis. Go drive it in the rain. I bet we could lock up and slide right off this road. This is fantastic, actually. It's a beautiful rain. Very carefully. We made it back alive. Need the heat gun. Let me show you what the fuel pump temperature is right now. We just parked it, 135. And that's with it raining. When it's 95 and not raining, I've seen 145, 148, 141. Saw that the other day with this thing. So that heat pump is that fuel pump, it's just a heat pump. It's a vapor pump. Ain't doing nothing for putting fuel in the carburetor. So we're gonna fix that. Our deadhead system, we're gonna go to a return style system. I'll tell you the difference here in a little bit. Anywho, I need to design a new fuel system. Let me show you why. Right now, on my 1969 C10 with a big block 540 in it, I currently have what is called a deadhead system, which is basically the fuel comes out of the gas tank through a straw, goes along the frame rail, all the way down to the front of the truck, pops out next to this guy right here, which is the fuel pump. Then it is pumped up through that line, through the filter, through the regulator, out these two lines, and into the carburetor. It doesn't go anywhere else. That's why they call it a deadhead system. It dead ends into the motor. There's some drawbacks to this system, and we gotta go to the workbench so I can explain that. Back to a diagram. Tank, feed line, pump, filter, regulator, carb. Deadhead system. Very simple, very robust. Disadvantages to it. If your pump is pumping and the carb is not using as much fuel as this is pumping, it deadheads and builds up pressure, and the longer this sits by the block, the more heat this builds up. The other kind of system there is what we call a return style system, and it has the same components, but it adds a change to the regulator. The regulator has an outlet that lets the excess pressure go back to the tank. This tends to keep the fuel cooler, and because it's not just sitting here building pressure, building all that time next to the block, it goes back, cools it down, and it doesn't wear out the pump. It's less strain on the pump, less strain on the system. The first thing we need to figure out is what pressure do we need to operate at. For a carburetor, they're usually between 2 and 9 PSI. Mine happens to actually be set for 6.5 PSI. For EFI, they run anywhere from 40 to 60 PSI. That's how you determine what kind of pump you're gonna need to get. So let's talk about pumps for a second, because I need to figure out how much pump I need. And they're usually measured in gallons per hour or liters per hour. And we'll use that to figure out like what size pump we need. So this is gonna be a little bit of math. Don't be scared. It's just basic math. And I'll give you a cheat sheet and a table at the end too, just in case. To know how much fuel I need to be able to determine the size and flow of a pump that I need, we're gonna use a formula called the brake-specific fuel consumption formula. It's not that, hang on, trust me, I went to public school too. Formulas scare me. Let me show you. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our max horsepower times our brake-specific fuel consumption factor, and then we're gonna divide it by 6, which is 6 pounds of gas, because roughly a gallon of gas weighs 6 pounds, and that's gonna give us our gallons per hour. Now, what is a brake-specific fuel consumption factor that we need to use? Well, these are known. These are already known. We don't have to figure them out. So for gas, it's usually 0.4 to 0.5. Nitrous, it's 0.5 to 0.6. And for forced induction, which uses the most amount of fuel, it's 0.6 to 0.75. So you forced induction guys, you always burn more fuel. Good reasons though. For my setup, I have 708 horsepower. I know that from Blueprint because they sent me a dyno with it. Sheet with all that information on it. Really grateful for that. I times that by my 0.5, which is my brake-specific fuel consumption factor. And then I'm gonna divide it by 6, and that'll give me my gallons per hour. Now, 708 times 0.5 is 354. Divide that by 6, you end up with 59 gallons per hour. That means my truck can almost burn a gallon a minute. Almost. That's ridiculous, but it's good to know, because now I know what size fuel pump I need. I need to make sure that when I'm selecting my fuel pump, that it can do at least 59 gallons per hour. And this is one of those where if you're gonna do this, overestimate here. So if you make like 60 gallons per hour, you probably want a pump that's capable of 80 or 90 or 100 gallons per hour, just to make up for the coverage and flow size, characteristics of your fuel system, what kind of fittings you have. Lots of caveats there. You always want to go bigger on the pump than what you need. And let's talk a little bit more about pumps, because that can be confusing. Now that we know our gallons per hour that we need, 59 gallons per hour is like the bare minimum. We really probably want 80, 90, 100, somewhere in there. All pumps though, regardless if they're a mechanical pump on the side of the block, an inline pump on the exterior of the tank where it's easy to maintain, or if it's a pump in the tank, they all have a flow rating. This one that's sitting on the workbench is rated for 110 gallons per hour, which would theoretically be more than sufficient for our system if it wasn't for the fact that there's a big block 540 right here making all this get hot when the carb isn't using enough for this thing to flow a whole lot of fuel to keep itself cool. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna go to the best solution I can think of. We're gonna stop using a mechanical fuel pump on the side of the block. That's gonna be game changer number 1. We're gonna go to an in-tank style, like this boy right here, that bolts right on top of that Boyd tank that I have. That happens to be an Aeromotive 340 or 340 liter or 90 gallon per hour fuel pump. This is capable of 90 PSI, or not 90 PSI. I think it's like 60 PSI. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The pressure doesn't matter. It's more about the volume. This makes 90 gallons per hour. And with 90 gallons per hour, we can put this inside the fuel tank and change up the fuel system a little bit more. This guy right here, and completely take the heat out of the thing and have the return, which is basically a different regulator. A caveat though to going into an electric fuel pump is it's not just driven by the motor. It will be dependent upon electricity. So I've got to put some wires and stuff in here to make sure that I can get the electricity back to the tank, to the pump, to be able to do the pumping. I'm gonna use a relay that's off the 12-volt ignition to turn it on. Then the fuel pump will turn on when the ignition's on, and it should be primed and ready to go. Now, pay attention to the size of the wire that you're going, because this is kind of a far run. We're gonna use 10 gauge wire and make sure all the angry pixies can get back to the pump, and we're not gonna starve the pump for the amperage that it needs to do all the pumping. So keep that in mind when y'all are doing your setup. And other than that, that means I need to rip all the fuel line out of the truck and drop the tank, change a bunch of fittings, and then put it all back together and see if it works. If you're wondering what your brake specific fuel consumption is, I'm gonna put a table up here from 300 horsepower to 1,000 horsepower so you can see how many gallons per hour you're consuming. And it's kind of cool that I've already done the math so you can check it out and save you from using that formula. The relay setup, it's not that complicated. It's really just a ground, a hot, a trigger wire to tell it to turn on, and then the positive and negative that run all the way, and this is why it's 10 gauge back here. It's really hot, it's really bright. We're gonna get the fuel out of the truck. That's what it's doing right now. A little bit of a mess. It'll evaporate off pretty quick. It's 90-something degrees already. So now we're gonna start taking apart the rest of the fuel system. So we're gonna get the fuel lines off and work our way this way. Ultra black, oil resistant. For the block off plate for where the fuel pump used to be, we got the push rod, and that plug back in with some high temp thread sealer. But there's the fuel pump, fuel line that was there. Now let's get the fuel line that's underneath the truck going along the frame. I'll start working on that, piecing that thing out. Here we go. Ooh, it's warm. Big progress step. The big fuel line that went from like here all the way to here, no longer under there. That got a band-aid out of that one. That's always a monster to take in or out. Okay, back to work. It's hot. We're gonna take a breather. One more piece out. Let's keep going. The fuel system completely stripped out of the truck. There's all the lines, there's the pump, the old pump where the tank was under the bed. Wipe down this tank. We need to get this out, put the fuel pump in it. We need to change this out so we'll have a return line. So let's get started with that. Okay, I don't know about y'all, but it's warm. We got a lot done. Got the entire old system out, got the new fuel pump in, Got our fitting changed for our return. This will be our feed line, -8, -6. Even got our Deutsch connector on for our fuel pump. Got the wiring harness over there. Got a Deutsch connector on that. We'll start putting that in tomorrow for all our fittings. And even started to think about where's the regulator gonna live. And I think it's gonna live in about this area, underneath just above where the catch can lines will go. That'll have it out of the way. It'll be far enough away from the headers that we don't have any problems. Now it's just a matter of wiring and plumbing, and I need to go order a couple of fittings that I don't have, so they'll be here fairly soon. So let me go do that, and we're gonna close up the shop for the day, because right now it's 98 and it's just hot. I don't wanna be out here anymore. Time for some water. We'll see you guys tomorrow. I get to be a plumber, electrician, an engineer, and broke. Definitely broke. All in the name of fuel delivery stability, which equals horsepower. That old setup wasn't too bad. It was just a straight shot to the pump, to the filter, to the carb. This one's a little bit more complicated, but with those complications comes some advantages. The biggest complication is we're moving the pump to the rear of the truck, which means we gotta run a couple of wires back there. Not hard, it's a relay, 5 wires. We could do that, it's not the end of the world. The other thing we have to do is we have to run 2 fuel lines along the entire chassis. One to feed, one to return. And then it dumps it into the carb with the same amount of pressure that it should have all the time. The components we're gonna use though, we're gonna use an Aeromotive style return regulator. And we're also gonna use a much bigger Aeromotive filter. The reason we're going from this tiny filter to this filter is in a return style, this electric fuel pump is gonna pump 90 gallons per hour when it's running. And all that filtering would eventually clog this little guy up. We don't want anything to clog that up, so big filter. Also, it'll take it a really long time to fill it up. I don't know how long it would take to fill this one up, because these flow a lot, but I don't wanna find out, so big filter. And we'll put our return back in here. So this will constantly be cycling gas, keeping this 340 liter or 90 gallon per hour Aeromotive 340 pump nice and cool. And this will all be tucked up under the truck, away from the heat of the 540. And that will be the biggest win. Because our biggest problem that we have with this truck is that 540 cubic inch water heater is extremely good at warming up water. Let's get to work. Let's go to the front for the regulator. We have to have fixed points before you can plumb between them. I think we're gonna stick the regulator somewhere in this neighborhood. Some more magical assortment of nutserts. Where I'm a little stuck. Under the truck's a little bit more crowded. I have a feeling that this guy, we're gonna need a light because it's dark under there, is gonna live. Hold on with me. Hands full. I have a feeling it's gonna live somewhere in this vicinity. Because on this side, there's exhaust system all the way up there. And I'd have to come out between the frame and the exhaust to get to the regulator. Which is extreme proximity to, you know, just 4.1, what is it? 4.4 liters worth of exhaust inches away. Yeah, let's not do that. So if we stick this here, it'll be outside the frame, but within the steel body. There's no pinch points, and I can run it along the frame all the way up to the front. I think that's what I'm gonna do. And we'll figure out our hangers and all that stuff, and I'll show you how that works. It's a new day, guys. Let me go ahead and get this regulator mounted, and then we can start working on our hoses. This thing is a punch. This might actually make the hole. We're gonna use some nutserts. We're gonna mount the regulator right there. So let me grab a drill, put a couple holes in that, put these guys in, mount the regulator, and then we'll start figuring out hose stuff. I don't know if y'all noticed, but I change shirts a lot because I work a lot. And when I get a little bit of time, I come out here and work on this thing. We've got it mounted now. Now we need to put that guy there, probably attach an AN line and start connecting boops and bobs and bips, and we'll get closer and closer to actually having this thing plumbed. So that's what we're gonna work on. Let's make some lines. Since it's plumbing time, I need to talk about what we're gonna use. We're not gonna use a 3/8 rubber hose because 700 horsepower, that's dangerous. That's gonna burn the truck down. Wouldn't be something I wanna use. I'm not gonna use hardline either because we previously had a 3/8 hardline straw with a no return, and well, the heat of the 540 showed that wasn't gonna work. So let's go to the return style system, and we're gonna use AN fittings, which are basically Army Navy fittings, or fittings that have a 37-degree male flare and a 37-degree female flare, and they seal on like that. The hoses actually connect on with this fitting. You slide it in, you bring the hose up next to the thread. So like this will slide over the end like that. And then the other one goes to the internal side of the hose, and then it squeezes the wall of the hose to seal it. That's how AN works. They're either crimp, they're screw on, there's different ones, and they come in all the AN sizes from -2 to whatever else they go to. I don't even know how high they go. How high do AN fittings go? The biggest I've ever seen is an AN 22. I'm sure they're bigger, but I haven't seen it. So you tell me in the comments, what's the biggest AN one you've ever seen? Well, we're gonna make a bunch of hoses. Word of caution. So these will cut this. They will not cut this cleanly. And to get the cleanest, most perpendicular cut, I'm actually gonna use a cutoff wheel. Fresh blade in it, and I'm gonna try to cut this as perpendicular as possible, so that way I can put this hose together. Oh, hello, welcome back. You overheated because it's very, very warm outside. I'm gonna try and put this second one on. I did get the first one on. It took me a few tries, I will be honest. It took a bit. So we're gonna try with this one. We're gonna try working it back on. I'm using Teflon tape this time instead of masking tape, and we'll see if it makes any difference. It's just not easy to do. So we'll work at it, see how it goes. And once we get it on, yeah. And our first line that I've ever made like this with this material turned out like that. We'll actually pressure test this. We'll get a cap on one end and a Schrader valve on the other, dip it in some water and see if it holds air. We'll do that when that stuff gets here, but I have many more of these to make. It's not gonna be tonight because I need to go cook dinner. We will see you guys when we resume. So, see you tomorrow. It's a new day. We've made no progress this week because this week's been a hard week. But we're out in the garage now, so let's make some progress. We're still working with the steel braided AN line instead of the, I would call it the textile braided stuff. So we're gonna use a cutoff wheel, trim this down perpendicular, put an AN8, put our collar on it, then squeeze that into there with the collar on it, and we'll have some AN8 lines. This is actually really challenging because all the little spiky stainless things that are here, they gotta go in there. I'm pretty sure we've lost some footage due to the heat that is out there and the GoPro. GoPro don't like heat. Anyway, we got one more hose on the fuel filter. Now I gotta get these two trimmed, and then it's electrical. And then we'll pressure test all these hoses, make sure they're nice and clean, and then we can try it. So let's keep working towards that direction. Trim some more, make some more shiny plumbing. Let's go. This is a high pressure fuel system. We need to pressure test every one of these lines I just made. We're gonna do that with a cap and a Schrader valve. My air compressor goes to 120 PSI. I'm gonna turn it all the way up since these are rated for much more. Gonna fill them up full of air and then drag them over and dump them in the bucket and see if anything happens. Let's do some pressure testing and quality checking on our work. All right, hopefully this doesn't blow up in my face. 120 PSI. Here we go. Yep, this says 110. I don't think my regulator will do more than that. So, into the bucket. Let me put the cap on the Schrader valve, just in case. Let's go do some science. Good news, I don't hear anything. I think there's bubbles coming out. I don't know if you can see that, but there's definitely bubbles coming out. Where is it coming out from? Might be that this isn't tight enough. Let's check that. I'm gonna try and tighten this up just in case. But if not, we'll pull the other one apart and check it. I may have just half-assedly put this on here. Let's see if that makes a difference. Oop, that stopped the bubbles. All right, let's go recharge this and double check. Let me go grab that air hose. Let's give it a little recharge. We're down to 80. Back to 110. Back to the bucket. Put the cap on the Schrader valve, keep the water out of that. Let's go back to the bucket. All right, I'm gonna shove this in here. Unscientifically. All right, this go around, no bubbles. Sweet. That's holding 110 PSI. I think our 40 to 60 PSI will have no effect on this. Now I'll do this for every single hose because I don't want to die in a fireball of my own creating. So, yeah. Win. All right, more testing for me. I'll check back in with you in a bit. Something else I'm doing before I put any of these hoses into full service, I'm gonna blow them out, clean out the ends, make sure that they're clean so I'm not filling up my brand new filters full of trash. Just a little extra time here can save me a lot of problems everywhere else. Yeah. All right, we'll do the rest of these too. Now that all the lines are pressure tested, we can install them and we just gotta do the wiring. That's pretty freaking exciting. Then I think it's set the regulator and see what happens. This is a glycerin filled gauge from Aeromotive. It has a little pressure relief valve on it so you can get your pressures dialed in pretty accurately. This is actually an accurate gauge for the fuel system. It matches our system. We're going 0 to 15 PSI. And it'll be there forever. It'll live right there, and whenever we want to change it, we'll just reach up there and make the adjustments and should be good to go. Let's get this installed. It's a full house on the differential pressure wall. Got our lines coming from the car, our catch can lines coming over the catch can, and then we got our fuel regulation system. Got our gauge installed. I really like how that looks. It doesn't look too mad sciencey. Now I got to secure these two lines going all the way back to the filter in the tank, and then wire the thing, and then put the tank back in. Not a lot to report tonight. Got our wiring harness, the one that feeds the pump in the tank, all insulathermed up. Got it laid out on the truck, got the heat shrink on the end, got the relay in here, got the 12 volts right off the alternator feed. We've got our activator wire for the relay over there that we've got to hook up to a 12 volt ignition, but we'll do that in a little while. That'll be in the cab. I think next step, we're gonna put a Deutsch connector on the end of this and then probably tuck the wire into the frame where it's gonna live, and then that'll be it for tonight. But Deutsch connector, let's get that on. And then that harness will be ready for service, minus the activator wire from the 12 volt ignition source. Just keep chipping away, wiring, chip away, pick a circuit, chip away. Little thing I do, especially if we're dealing with like ignition or we're dealing with like fuel, make the connectors like this one. This female connector will only go to this pump. The sending unit has another female connector on it. So that way when these wires are all up underneath the truck, you can't accidentally hook up the wrong unit and part to the wrong piece and cause problems. Because the sending unit won't power the fuel pump, and the fuel pump doesn't need to be plugged into the sending unit. You know, little stuff. Wire loom, shielded, heat shrunk, Deutsch connector. We have a feed line, we have a return line, all the way in the frame. Now this doesn't have any of the hangers necessary to hold it all secure, but we're ready to start putting the tank back in here. And the tank is ready to bolt back in and hook up the lines and plug in now. And then all the rest of the work is just the relay up front and testing the thing. I really want to hear this thing run, so we'll keep making progress. See you guys in a little while. Tonight on What Is This Guy Doing? Let's see if we can put the 6 bolts back in the tank, hook up the 2 Deutsch connectors, the feed line, the return line, and have this back under there. Let's get it. Okay, for tonight, tank is bolted in. Sending unit, fuel pump, feed line, return line, they're all hooked up. I need to secure the AN lines that run along the frame. I might need to shorten the return line. I was a bit generous, but that's okay. With just a few pieces of hardware, zip ties and things, this will be secure. And we'll finish hooking up that relay. Fire this thing up, set the regulator, take it for a spin. It won't be tonight, but it's nice to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Time to go cook dinner. See you in a bit. One of the things I didn't show was blowing the dash apart to go find the 12 volt fuel pump wire that's the ignition on. We got that figured out. We're gonna run a wire from the relay to that to activate it. We've already got the wiring harness for the fuel pump in the frame. We do need to do some more securing. About to solder this extension on, which by the way, my wire is actually copper, but we'll get this wired in. That way everything works with the kill switch. This is looking fantastic. Can't wait to actually get it basically turn the key on and hear the pump run for the first time. We haven't done that yet. We did make sure it grounds, but we haven't ran it because I don't want it to pump fuel up here yet in case I want to change anything. Anyway, I'm gonna keep working on the electrical. I'll check back in with you guys probably here in a few days when I have that all tucked away. I do have to go to a funeral, which is gonna delay this a little bit, but I appreciate y'all's understanding. We will see you guys when I get back and we work a little bit more. See you then. These little guys are so handy for like soldering in tight places where you can't stick your hands, but you still gotta hold the soldering iron. All the wiring now, 12-volt ignition, found, wired, got it all loomed in, tucked in, minus a few zip ties and cleanup things. And that's really what we gotta do now is zip tie and clean up things. And then we can put some fuel pressure to it and go tell the world the 540 now has an electric fuel pump. So let's work towards that. It's late, we probably do some more later. See you in a bit. It's a new day. We've made a little bit of progress. We've got all the lines tightened up. We don't have them all secure or the wiring secure, but it's very close. I put 5 gallons of gas in the gas tank, or 20 liters. And now, since all the lines are hooked up, everything's tightened up, we should be able to turn the power on. Watch this go. Set the regulator for 7 PSI, fill the float bowls. I have to secure the fuel lines and the wiring before we take for a drive, but we can pressure test everything and make sure it's ready to go. So let's do that. All right, here we go. Let's turn the key on. Fuel pump should come on and this should go up. I hear the fuel pumping. There it goes. Okay, we had to stop. We had fuel shooting out of the vent tubes because I'm pretty sure we have too much pressure. We got to set the pressure regulator and it's pushing past the needle and seats. So, but that is pretty freaking cool. That pump's quiet. There's our fuel pressure. That's impressive. Good signs, good signs. I can hear the pump, but I don't hear it like super loud. It doesn't sound like it's trying to like break anything. These are dry. Successful pressure test. I do need to adjust that regulator, but I'm pretty thrilled about that. Wow, this is gonna be cool. And yeah, the float bowls are full and I think it's ready to go. So I'll just lock that down. And should fire off. Sweet. Let's turn the key to the starter position, give it a pump of gas, see what it does. I'm glad that pump is quiet. And here we go. That's enough. We got to do the rest of the work so we can take it for a drive now and go fill up the gas tank. That pump comes on with authority and it's ready to do work. I need to secure the fuel lines and the wiring and then I can take it for a drive. So that'll be my next project. I'll see you when it's time to go for a drive and I'll show you what it looks like. Work for me, see you in a while. Had a big week. Got the fuel system completely changed out. Electric pumps in, here's the old system. The only thing we really haven't talked about is fuel line size. And I'm gonna give you guys kind of like some basic guidelines in case you're wondering what kind of fuel line size you need if you wanna build a new fuel system. So Dash 6 will get you up to about 550 horsepower. Dash 8 is 550 to 1,000 horsepower. It'll support all of it if you've got the pump to push it. And Dash 10, if you got more than 1,000 horsepower, yeah, you're going big. But I'm pretty excited that these are now the fuel lines in the truck. We did get everything secured along the frame. We use a bunch of different kind of style clips like this to hold the wiring loom. And then the other thing that I use to hold the fuel lines to make sure are these little L brackets from TMR. They have a hole in them and this nice little thing here for a zip tie. And I'll show you where it's mounted all along the frame. Lots of zip ties to hold everything together and look everything pretty. So next up, let's go take this thing for a drive tomorrow and hopefully it works. And yeah, I'm pretty excited. We'll go fill it up full of gas and I'm excited. Let's go. It's a new day. Got driving shoes on. Let's go put some gas in this thing and test it. Got our driving shoes on. Got our fire extinguisher ready and ready. Hopefully we don't need it. Let's make some racket. This should be fun. I hear it. Find some highways and put some miles on it after we go to the gas station. That's the first place we're going. Because right now there's just under a quarter a tank of gas. Made it to the gas station. Let's fill this thing up and then we'll go for some more drive. All right, now we got a full tank of gas. Let's go make some racket. Nothing better than a full tank of gas. Let's see how this mic does. Excited to go get this thing on the highway and let it run for a while. Guys, I think it's time to start thinking about C10 Nationals at the Nashville Super Speedway. I think we're going to go
need to go register this evening. Because we're about to go by the Super Speedway. But I think the only thing I want to do between now and then is probably play with the carburetor a little bit. Because other than that, this is running really well. I don't want to change anything. Brakes are so good. Oh, this QA1 does a great job. If you haven't watched that episode where we convert this thing over to coilovers, I'll leave a link to it. It made such a difference on this truck. Even though it's a 4,300 pound truck, it does not feel like a 4,300 pound truck. Especially with the Willwood Aero 6 big brakes up front. This thing it's impressive. I'm excited about the C10 Nationals in September. I didn't get to bring this last year and I really wanted to. It's a new year. And speaking of, there's the Speedway. Zero hesitation. This thing's ratty. You know you're doing good when you pop your power steering belt off and it's too hot to loosen anything up yet. But we're still here. We'll get this back on. Oopsie doodles. Let's loosen up a couple bolts. See if we can get this back on. Sorry, you guys gotta be over there. Let's loosen up the one from the bottom. See you in a minute. Let's do some more loosening and see if we can get that thing to go back on. Let's see here. Very warm. Still very warm. I'm loosening the brackets that hold the power steering pump on to see if I can get just a little bit more of an angle on it to be able to put that on. Let's see if that does it. It should be able to. There we go. Come on, you're so close. Come on. Ah! All right, sweet. Belt's back on. Remember, always carry a toolkit with the basic fasteners, sockets, and stuff like that that you can work on your stuff, just in case you break down. Even though this is hot, we're still able to do kind of a field repair here. This wasn't a biggie. This was just a belt popping off and loosening brackets and getting it where we could put the belt back over the pulley, and then we'll be back on the road. Oopsie doodles. All right, let's go tighten up the one on the bottom. That one's the hot one because it's right next to that header. All right. All right, if we've done this all properly, I want to check those two front ones one more time before we crank it, because those, if they come loose, you know, those might be bad. Okay. It's not the tightest, but it will get us home. All right, let's crank it back over and see if we can get back on the road. Let's go home. Just one more. We fixed the fuel delivery issue. So what have we learned today? Electric fuel pump? Awesome. New fuel system with return? Really good. Very stable fuel pressure. Being dumb and revving it up and throwing a belt? Lesson learned. Glad I had the toolkit. But we're gonna get home. We're gonna let the wife know we're okay. And guys, if you've made it this far, thank you guys for watching. I'm thoroughly impressed with the Aeromotive fuel pump and the Earl's fuel line and all the fittings. It's working really well. I'm Gorm of Gormworks. Thank you guys for watching. I know this was a long video, but I appreciate every second that you guys watch. Let me know what you guys thought, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm Gorm. I'm out.